have not released
Given
the
the
Epstein
numbers
files.
of pedophiles,
You are aware of the
we have
Epstein
arrested.
client list that was published in the 18,000
Time the gentleman has expired.
Well, well, MAGA's own FBI bulldog, Kash Patel, just completely buckled in front of the House hearing. This man has been screaming for months about transparency and truth, but the moment he was asked the same question that's been asked 100 times, he froze, he stuttered, he danced around it like a kid caught cheating on a math test. And that right there tells you everything, because they could release these files with one button, one order, one click, but they won't. They are playing the most obvious stalling game in modern political history, and now it's blowing up in their faces. And the best part? They're not just losing independents. They're not just losing moderates. They're losing millions of Republicans, their own base, and even their top loyalists are jumping ship. Just look at what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say. The same woman Trump once called the future of MAGA is now out here exposing them, calling them out publicly, and telling the American people exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And when MTG turns on you, when she starts blowing the whistle, that's not a warning. That's a full-blown alarm bell.
And that's what we did by fighting so hard against the most powerful people in the world, even the President of the United States, in order to make this vote happen today. I was called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for. And I gave him my loyalty for free. I won my first election without his endorsement, beating 8 men in a primary. And I've never owed him anything, but I fought for him for the policies and for America first. And he called me a traitor for standing with these women and refusing to take my name off the discharge petition. Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America and Americans like the women standing behind me. And I want to tell you that this only became possible today because the American people whom we serve as representatives here in Congress demanded that this vote happen, and they put more pressure on every single elected politician in this city than has ever been put on them. And today you are going to see probably a unanimous vote in the House to release the Epstein files, but the real fight will happen after that.
The big drama has officially begun, and the DOJ is crumbling right in front of Trump's face. They've switched their story so many times in just 24 hours that they don't even remember what the original lie was. And now, after denying, deflecting, and dodging for months, they're suddenly claiming Trump has nothing to do with it. Really? Now they say that? Right when the pressure hits the ceiling. We'll get back to Marjorie Taylor Greene's video in a second because she absolutely blew this wide open. But first, just watch what MAGA Mike had to say about all of this. It tells you everything.
President Trump has nothing to do with it. He has said himself he has nothing to hide. And that's clearly what they've been trying to do. They're trying to attack President Trump. This is what they've done. They weaponized the justice system over the last several years to go after him, and this is their latest attempt. And they don't have a platform or a principle to defend on the Democrat Party side, so they put all their eggs in this basket. And that's why you hear endlessly about Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Everything's about Epstein.
And I don't know what Trump has on these people, but whatever it is, it's working. Because the way they're scrambling right now is insane. They're actually trying to bury the truth in front of millions of people, as if we're all too blind or too stupid to notice what's happening. But here's what they forgot. Nobody believes them anymore. Not the independents, not the Democrats, and not even their own base. And then came the real shocker. The Washington Post just released new data showing that even MAGA Republicans, yes, Trump's own people, are demanding the Epstein files to be released. That means the cover-up is collapsing from the inside, and the pressure is now coming from the very crowd Trump thought he controlled. And the craziest part, Tyler Cohen, while on Piers Morgan, blew apart the entire excuse machine Republicans are using to distract you. He laid out the truth. The Epstein files were in the hands of Merrick Garland, the least politically aggressive man to ever run the DOJ.
The files were in the possession of one person, just like they're in the possession of Pam Bondi right now, who will, of course, bend to the every whim of Donald Trump. They were in the possession of Merrick Garland. This is a guy who wouldn't even investigate Donald Trump for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. This is somebody whose entire ethos, his entire raison d'etre in government was just to prevent the optics of politicization. Am I surprised that Merrick Garland didn't leak any of this information in the files? Absolutely not. This guy's sole focus was to not do anything political or politicized. So do I think it should have been leaked? Absolutely. Do I care whether anyone from Larry Summers or Bill Clinton all the way to Donald Trump is implicated in these files? Am I looking to protect any of these people? Absolutely not. I think all of this should have been released. And by the way, so did the people that staff this very administration. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel. The fact that they now are so silent, the fact that they're perpetuating the same cover-up that they once condemned.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I think you make a perfectly valid point about the hypocrisy on both sides. Michael, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, hold on. Brian's whitewashing Garland a little bit too much here. He's complimenting him by pretending to insult him. So he's saying, the real problem with Merrick Garland... Well, you are, because you're saying the real problem with Merrick Garland is he didn't want to get into the fray of politics. He was so clean. He wanted to remain so above it all. This is the guy who lied about the Biden DOJ spying on Catholic parishes. I don't know. He was a complete political hack. And I think what's important to this conversation is I don't think it was Merrick Garland's pristine moral standards that prevented him from releasing this. I think Piers is probably right that if the Democrats don't want to release the files, it's because the files don't look good for them either.
If you think Merrick Garland was a political hack, do you think Pam Bondi is a political hack, Michael?
I think Pam Bondi is doing a very good job as Attorney General.
Well,
I don't think she's a hack like Garland.
This woman has engaged in every political prosecution. Donald Trump literally sends his little edicts out into the ether on Truth Social.
Garland wasn't protecting Trump. He wasn't protecting Democrats. He wasn't protecting anyone. His whole existence is avoid appearing political at all costs. So of course he didn't leak anything. Of course he didn't touch these files. The man barely investigated Trump's attempted coup. But the MAGA world wants you to believe Democrats hid the files to save Clinton or Summers or JP Morgan, while simultaneously claiming Democrats are releasing the files now to hurt Trump. The contradiction is hilarious. It's stupid. It's MAGA.
The president writing on social media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide.
Oh, nothing to hide. For those of you at home who are watching tonight and have something to hide, whether it be a simple guilty pleasure of the lowbrow television variety, hello swinging Mormons, or a body encased in concrete by your sump, at some point the walls will close in, at which point you too will probably find yourself saying, maybe not via tweet, hey, go ahead, look, I got nothing to hide. But you do. You do. And so does Trump. Because guess what? If he had nothing to hide, he could have declassified and released these files himself at any time. How do I know this? A legal expert named Donald Jurisprudence Trump said so.
If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it.
It is clear that Trump has been trapped by his own mistakes based on all the evidence we have here. And that's why the meltdown from Stephen Miller is so revealing, because he was there the first time. He knows exactly how deep the rot goes. And watching him unravel on live television, shrieking about energy hell and Obamacare killing America, is the clearest sign yet that they are terrified. Terrified of tomorrow's Epstein vote. Terrified the files will expose everything. Terrified the cover-up isn't holding anymore.
Obamacare has been an abject failure. Obamacare has led to rising premiums for Americans. Who gave us Obamacare? The Democrats. Who's fighting to defend American patients from Obamacare? Republicans and President Trump. And one more issue we have to talk about is immigration. For 4 years, the housing costs were exploding because Democrats were flooding your communities with illegal immigrants, with foreign workers, and with foreign nationals who are getting subsidized housing. President Trump, through his judge it by the results, President Trump came into office, slashed the trade deficit, trillions in new investment, critical industries back on our shores, Wages are rising for the first time in 4 years. Energy costs are the lowest they've been in 4 years. And he did it all while also implementing these tariffs. So the claims that tariffs would cause inflation have been proven flat out wrong. Democrats wrecked the economy for 4 years. Let's remember, for 4 years, they put you through economic hell.
The host kept trying to interrupt him because even they realized how bad he looked, sweating, yelling, repeating the same broken talking points like someone rebooting mid-sentence. He's yelling about healthcare. He's yelling about immigration. He's yelling about tariffs. None of it connects. None of it lands. It's the meltdown of a man who knows the room is on fire, but keeps screaming, "The house is fine," while the roof collapses on his head. Because MAGA is exhausted. The lies aren't working. The base is splintering. And tomorrow, the Epstein vote, is Judgment Day. Trump has spent 300 days blocking those files, threatening Republicans who even think about transparency. Mike Johnson buried the vote for months. Trump reportedly barred his own attorney general from releasing anything. But now the dam has cracked. The Republicans can't hide it anymore. And every single person around Trump knows this vote could end the entire illusion.
Everybody in Donald Trump's White House is in a state of complete crisis. It brings me so much joy that I even want to talk about it with a stuffy nose, because Stephen Miller is freaking out right now, and how could we not want to cover that? Because he went on a MAGA channel to melt down, scream, and lose his mind so much that the host kept trying to interrupt him as he just yelled and broke down, as Donald Trump's term is doing the same, breaking down because of the Epstein files. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get to Miller's on-air meltdown, which again, the host tried to save him from having, I want to start with one of the most important lies to debunk about the Epstein files that came from Brian Tyler Cohen right here while he was on Piers Morgan.
The files were in the possession of one person, just like they're in the possession of Pam Bondi right now, who will, of course, bend to the every whim of Donald Trump. They were in the possession of Merrick Garland. This is a guy who wouldn't even investigate Donald Trump for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. This is somebody whose entire ethos, his entire raison d'etre in government was just to prevent the optics of politicization. Am I surprised that Merrick Garland didn't leak any of this information in the files? Absolutely not. This guy's sole focus was to not do anything political or politicized. So do I think it should have been leaked? Absolutely. Do I care whether anyone from Larry Summers or Bill Clinton all the way to Donald Trump is implicated in these files? Am I looking to protect any of these people? Absolutely not. I think all of this should have been released. And by the way, so did the people that staff this very administration. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel. The fact that they now are so silent, the fact that they're perpetuating the same cover-up that they once condemned.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I think you make a perfectly valid point about the hypocrisy on both sides. Michael, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, hold on. Brian's whitewashing Garland a little bit too much here. He's complimenting him by pretending to insult him. So he's saying, the real problem with Merrick Garland... Well, you are, because you're saying the real problem with Merrick Garland is he didn't want to get into the fray of politics. He was so clean. He wanted to remain so above it all. This is the guy who lied about the Biden DOJ spying on Catholic parishes. I don't know. He was a complete political hack. And I think what's important to this conversation is I don't think it was Merrick Garland's pristine moral standards that prevented him from releasing this. I think Piers is probably right that if the Democrats don't want to release the files, it's because the files don't look good for them either.
If you think Merrick Garland was a political hack, do you think Pam Bondi is a political hack, Michael?
I think Pam Bondi is doing a very good job as Attorney General.
Well,
I don't think she's a hack like Garland.
This woman has engaged in every political prosecution. Donald Trump literally sends his little edicts out into the ether on Truth Social.
The idea that somehow Democrats have put obstacles in place of the release of the Epstein files doesn't really make any sense, especially when Republicans are now saying that some of the email dumps of the Epstein files are only being done by Democrats for political purposes. So at the same time, they want to say that Joe Biden didn't release any of the Epstein files because there was nothing in there to damage Donald Trump, but also Democrats now are releasing specific Epstein files because they're damaging to Donald Trump. None of it makes sense. The only thing that does make sense is that Ghislaine Maxwell was prosecuted and convicted under Joe Biden's administration. That is what we did to bring justice to the victims. That is what was done by Democrats. And now, whereas Ghislaine Maxwell in a 5-star resort because of Donald Trump. So there's the difference. And speaking of that, speaking of the cover-up that's been going on for a while, Jamie Raskin had the perfect analysis of how this is not just a one-term cover-up before we get to Miller's meltdown.
This is like a deadly serious issue for the survivors, for the victims of this massive offense. They want to know the truth. They have a right to truth and justice, as well as for others who haven't even come forward yet. This was a massive child sex abuse and trafficking ring, which was covered up originally by Alex Acosta, who later gets rewarded with an appointment to the Trump cabinet.
I feel like that is missing just so much from the coverage of the Epstein files, how this attempt to cover up did not just start in Donald Trump's current administration. It is why the meltdown from Stephen Miller, someone who saw the first Trump administration, is so telling. In my mind, this is a cover-up that hasn't just been going on while Donald Trump was a political figure. He was trying to distance himself from Epstein for a long time, of course, not in any way that meant he wasn't going to still be friends with him, but he didn't want the blame. Donald Trump, we know, certainly doesn't want the blame, and that is why Stephen Miller was tasked with going on air to melt down over why the Democrats are lying about affordability, sure, and how we put you in energy hell, and how we destroyed the healthcare system. It was a mess, but you just got to watch it because the host tried to save him.
Obamacare has been an abject failure. Obamacare has led to rising premiums for Americans. Who gave us Obamacare? The Democrats. Who's fighting to defend American patients from Obamacare? Republicans and President Trump. And one more issue we have to talk about is immigration. For 4 years, the housing costs were exploding because Democrats were flooding your communities with illegal immigrants, with foreign workers, and with foreign nationals who were getting subsidized housing. President Trump, through his judge it by the results, President Trump came into office, slashed the trade deficit, trillions in new investment, critical industries back on our shores. Wages are rising for the first time in 4 years. Energy costs are the lowest they've been in 4 years. And he did it all while also implementing these tariffs. So the claims that tariffs would cause inflation have been proven flat out wrong. Democrats wrecked the economy for 4 years. Let's remember, for 4 years, they put you through economic hell.
Stephen Miller is such a repugnant figure, and that is the only word that I have for Stephen Miller. He's a repugnant figure. I always talk about how like his suits are so ill-fitting. I know Stephen Miller has got plenty of money. He could afford a nicer suit, but it's just like that even the fabric is like, blah. I don't, Stephen Miller, get me away. I don't like this. And then just like tries to run away from him. With the host constantly interrupting as Miller is like, the Democrats, they put you in energy hell. The Democrats, they broke healthcare. Which is how Stephen Miller sounds to me. Or I guess it's kind of like this. It's kind of like the Democrats. He's weird. He looks gross. But the host constantly interrupting and going, Stephen, could we just shut up, please, shut the fuck up, please, Stephen, stop it. It's just so funny to me. Like even the low rate, like this is a non-Fox. I know like Fox is now competitive with all the other fringe MAGA outlets, but this guy, like this isn't like prime time, million people watching. He like probably enjoys Stephen Miller and kind of has to coddle his to keep him on air, and even he is just like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore because MAGA is tired. They are worn out. They see the fracturing within the base, within the administration, within the party, and it's all because tomorrow is their day of judgment. It is the Epstein vote, and on all of that breaking news that is to come, especially with the updates that you need for tomorrow, I want to hear Ari Melber's breakdown of what is happening tomorrow with this Epstein vote and why Donald Trump is especially terrified.
You're watching The Beat with Ari Melber on MS Now amid the countdown to Congress voting on releasing the Epstein files. The vote is expected tomorrow. Anything can happen, but that's the current congressional guidance. The plan is for the House to vote on a bipartisan measure to release the Epstein files that the Trump administration, the DOJ specifically, has been holding and refusing to release. Now, I'm going to walk through this with you because I've heard a lot of stuff about the Epstein files, frankly, for years, but especially today. And so let's start with the facts. The Trump administration has now had about 300 days in office and has refused to release any of the Epstein files in that time. Trump has also spent the better part of this year refusing to release the Epstein material. The issue has come up in many ways. He has been asked about it in public. He has been pressed about it by journalists. And he has, of course, watched as the Congress moved towards wanting to do this. His DOJ can release these files within the law any time. There may be some technicalities, victims' names, grand jury material, certain things that are protected. But they have the material and they can release the bulk of it anytime, and they haven't. So we know Donald Trump opposes actually releasing the files because he has not released the files. Sometimes this stuff gets pretty simple. There's also reporting that he specifically barred his attorney general from releasing the files per Axios. But even without those internal specifics, the buck stops with the president, and he won't release the files. And that has been the state of play all year. And whether you follow the news all the time, daily news, watch TV, get it on your phone and internet, or just check in occasionally, you probably are aware of that baseline. So you say, okay, Ari, got a big vote tomorrow. What's the big deal? How did we get here? Well, just remember, because Trump is now in retreat. So there has been some spin and some other talk. But remember, the Trump secrecy, don't release the files, don't do it, whatever you do, was also backed by the co-equal branch of government where the Republicans control the House. And the Republican Speaker, Mike Johnson, didn't just oppose releasing the files, right? That's the position. He also opposed and refused to ever schedule any vote on whether to release the files.
The day of judgment has come, MAGA. You are unable to escape, and thank God. We need accountability. These are people who have gone without it for so long. You know, you can say what you want about the beginning of Joe Biden's presidency and the importance of bringing the country together. But I think, and as Brian pointed out at the top of the show, part of the reason I want to play that clip, our failure to fully recognize the damage that Donald Trump had done, corroding the soul of a country, and to not try to fully root it out, but to move on and to try to like put something over it. That's what we kind of did. We were like, there are these deep weeds that Donald Trump is like. That's what Donald Trump is. Or he's like with the weeds sprouting all across your lawn. And I feel like kind of what we did was maybe just put some more topsoil. And then we're like, well, we'll just plant some new flowers here, and it'll be fun. We covered up the weeds. Well, the weeds are just going to come. Their roots are deep. You got to rip them out. It's not enough to just cover it up and move on and never say Trump's name again, which is what we did. We were like, oh, that guy, the former guy, and it's just like, it didn't work. People forgot about how bad he was. They forgot how disastrous his presidency was because we wouldn't mention his name. And we can't do that again. We have to be loud in talking about Donald Trump's abuses of power. We have to be loud in talking about his abuses alongside Epstein. We have to be loud in talking about these cover-up, asking dark questions because all of the answers we've gotten lately are very dark. So we should ask, Trump kill Epstein? I don't know. But why is that outside the realm of the possibilities? Well, why can't we ask that question? We can ask that question. We should ask that question. We, in fact, have to ask that question. If we don't confront every dark, scary, despicable, disgusting part of this administration, we may not fully recognize just how awful these people are. We might not be able to fully grapple with what it will take to move past this, to actually fix our country. And so we are going to be unapologetic on this show. I promise you that, even when my nose is so stuffy and I sound so bad, and I apologize that y'all had to listen to me like this today. But I'm going to take some Advil cold and sinus. We are going to keep fighting on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Send me some tissues. And until next time, I'll see you soon.
And honestly, I would say, let the truth rip through every layer of corruption. Let every dark question finally be asked. And if you think any of this is too far, remember, these people covered up a child sex trafficking ring for decades. There is no too far. We've tiptoed around Trump's abuses. We've tiptoed around his crimes. We've tiptoed around his ties to Epstein. No more tiptoeing. No more silence. No more pretending. We are ripping the weed out by the roots this time. If you made it to the end, drop a blue heart. And yes, send tissues. I definitely need them.